Weight loss is an ambiguous term and doesn't tell us whether we lost fat or muscle. Fat loss, on the other hand, is a very specific term with a single meaning: loss of body fat. Most of your body's fat is stored on top of the muscles and consequently determines the extent to which you can see those underlying muscles. In other words, fat controls how lean and defined you are. Having more fat than your body needs also leads to a variety of health problems. My point? Looking good and feeling great has nothing to do with weight loss. It's losing fat that makes you more toned and defined. That's where the looking good benefit comes from. And it's losing fat that makes you healthier. That's where the feeling great benefit comes from. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, your body has two very clear instructions or laws for you about how it works and what it needs to burn fat. Even though you and your actions may not always be consistent, your body remains as dependable and predictable as gravity. It only knows how to operate by these two laws. That's just the way it's always worked, and it's the way it'll continue to work. And I've got to warn you that when it comes to fat loss, you and your body are two separate entities. Your body doesn't care about your intentions, and it doesn't care if you think you're giving it what it needs to burn fat. All your body cares about is whether or not it's actually getting what it needs to burn fat. That makes you the only variable. You can ignore and resist the two instructions and fail to give your body what it needs, in which case your body will patiently continue to deliver consequences, or you can follow the body's two very clear fat burning instructions and give it what it needs, in which case it'll eagerly reward you every time. Body law number one: muscle controls the speed of your metabolism. Your metabolism or metabolic rate is like a fire. When you maintain your muscle, your fire will remain bigger and hotter, and your body will burn more energy or calories. Simply stated, protect and maintain your muscle, and you'll burn more fat. If you let your muscle slip away, your fire or metabolism will slow, and you'll end up gaining fat. There's two ways that happens. Number one, you lose muscle when you're inactive. If you don't use your muscles, they get smaller and weaker. And number two, as you'll see in the next body law, you lose muscle when you don't feed your body enough of the right things. Now, if you have gained some body fat, that's an indication that you've already lost muscle. And if that's the case, I don't want you thinking that you need to protect and maintain. I want you thinking in terms of I need to rescue and regain any muscle that I have lost. Again, you do that by being active, but all activities are not created equally when it comes to rescuing and protecting muscle tissue. Hands down, exercising with weights is the single most effective activity you can do to maintain and regain muscle tissue, which in turn will speed your metabolism and allow your body to burn more fat. Now, I bet I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I've always heard that cardio activities like walking, biking, and swimming were great for burning fat. They are, and I call it the 1-2 punch. You absolutely must combine weight training with your cardio activity for two reasons. Number one, a faster metabolism from weight training makes your fat-burning cardio activity that much more effective. And number two, a faster metabolism from weight training means your body will also be burning more energy or calories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not just when you're exercising. And with all that having been said, here's your body's first, very clear fat-burning instruction. Muscle is the key to burning fat. If you have it, protect it. And if you've lost it, rescue it. You need to start weight training now. Body law number two: body fat is a protective device. Your body was designed for self-preservation. In other words, it's capable of protecting itself. The way it protects itself from the threat of starvation is by stockpiling its protective device, body fat. Here's how it works. We live in times of plenty, and you know there's always food available to you when you want it, but your body doesn't know that. So consequently, even though you may know you're not at risk of starving to death, every time you deprive intentionally or just get too busy and go too long without food, it still represents a threat of starvation to your body. Every time your body senses that threat, it drops into what's called protection mode. In protection mode, your body hangs on for dear life to its protective device, body fat. Your body only has three things it can burn: carbs, your body's preferred source of energy; fat, your body's protective device; or protein, your body's muscle tissue. Let's say you skipped breakfast one day and dropped into protection mode. Because you didn't eat, there's no carbs available. And because you're in protection mode, your body won't burn fat. That means there's only one thing left to burn: muscle tissue. It's that simple. Don't eat enough, lose muscle weight. But it doesn't end there. Now there's consequences. As we learn in body law number 1, muscle controls the speed of your metabolism. When you lose muscle, your metabolism slows and you rebound and gain even more fat. Now, having counseled thousands of people over the last 23 years, I can tell you from personal experience that this is where 90% of them went wrong. Always with good intentions. They either cut back and ate less on purpose, or they were just too busy and went too long in between meals. Either way, they violated body law number 2 and forced their bodies to burn valuable muscle tissue as an energy source. Don't make it any more complicated than this. When you don't give your car enough gas, be prepared to suffer the consequences of being stuck at the side of the road. And when you don't give your body enough fuel, be prepared to suffer the consequences of muscle loss and fat gain. The good news, your body doesn't want to be burdened by storing and carrying around any more fat than it has to. It only does it to protect you. That's its job. Your body is ready and willing to part with its fat when you give it what it needs. And with all that having been said, your body's second very clear fat burning instruction: consistently give your body enough of the right foods at the right times in the right amounts so you can stay out of protection mode and in fat burning mode. Hi folks, I'm Bruce Day and welcome to Eat Wise, Not Less. The information in this DVD picks up where the moderation method left off. It's essential that you've watched and become familiar with that 3-clip message, especially the body laws, because they're the platform and foundation of everything to follow. In my quest to keep it simple, I'm going to bring you back for a second to the 2 statistics that very clearly seem to summarize what's going on out there. Number 1, it's a fact that right now in our country, hands down, we have more people on diets than ever before. And number 2, it's also a fact that the percentage of overweight, or should I say over-fat Americans, continues to rise. That makes it very clear that this whole concept of dieting or eating less is not only not working, it's actually causing people to gain even more fat. Now, we all know the consequences of eating too much of the wrong things. That's not the issue here. The real issue is how people seem to respond to eating too much of the wrong things. The reaction from most people is, oh, I need to avoid this and this and this. And if I just take in less of everything, I'll be okay. If that's the way you think, you're not going to be okay, because as I showed you in Body Law 2, when you give your body less than it needs to function properly, there's going to be consequences. You are going to gain fat. That brings me to the difference between eating less and eating wise. By eating less, you're focused on the negative, what to avoid and what not to do. Eating wise, on the other hand, means staying focused on the positive, what to do. Eating wise simply means giving your body the right amounts of the right things at the right times. So I'm going to show you what, when, and how much to eat. I'll get to that in just a minute. But first, I need to make you fully aware of the consequences of not giving your body enough energy. And because our bodies get their necessary energy from carbs, and because the low-carb fad has misled so many people, I'm going to start with the truth about how carbs really work. Beginning with a review of all the nutrients, we know that fat is a protective device. Carbs are for energy, and protein is for repair and regeneration of all the cells and tissue in the body, not just muscle. Moving on to the basics of carbs, there's 3 types. Fiber, which is indigestible by the human body, helps to speed intestinal tract travel time and is found in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes. Simple carbs, which are all of the various forms of sugar, examples of which are sucrose, refined white table sugar, lactose, the sugar found in milk, and fructose, the sugar found in fruit. Complex carbs, commonly referred to as starchy carbs, are things like whole grains, rice, pasta, potatoes, cereals, breads, etc. In the interest of making things simple, you'll hear me use 2 terms throughout the remainder of this program: clean carbs and junk carbs. Clean carbs are the natural or whole grain complex carbs I just mentioned, like rice, pasta, potatoes, cereals, breads, etc. And junk carbs will refer to the unnatural, sugary, processed type carbs. When consumed in excess, fats, simple carbs, and protein will all be stored as body fat. But our bodies have an amazing ability to store clean carbs as energy. The easiest way to understand how it works is to compare it to this IV drip bag. Just like the gas tank in your car, this bag represents your body's fuel supply. This is where clean, complex carbs are stored as energy. Now, as your body needs energy, the stored clean carbs are broken down into glucose, commonly known as blood sugar. That's represented here by the slow, steady drip that comes out the bottom of the bag. Now, as long as that drip of glucose or clean carbs is continuous, life is good. We're out of protection mode, we have ample energy, and our blood sugar levels are regulated. But when the tank runs dry and the drip of clean carbs stops, life isn't so good anymore. That's when we go into protection mode, and that's when we burn muscle. When the drip stops, your metabolism slows, your blood sugar level drops, you feel lethargic, tired, and flat out just don't have any energy. Don't let your drip stop. Your body works just like your car, so you don't need to be all stressed out about trying to figure out exactly how much energy you need that day. Your car functions the same whether it has 10 gallons of gas left, 1 quart of gas left, or 3 drops of gas left. But when that last drop of gas is gone, that's when you deal with the consequences of being stuck at the side of the road. Same thing here. You could have a full tank, a quarter tank, or 5 drops left. But when that last drop is gone, you're going to suffer the muscle loss, fat gain consequences. By having this surplus mechanism, you have a margin of error. To keep your drip continuous, you just need to keep your storage of clean carbs somewhere between here and here. You wouldn't think of running your car completely out of gas and then filling it up. Well, your focus needs to be the same with your body. You need to replenish your energy supply before you run dry, not after. Put a gold star next to this one because it's one of the most important things I'm going to tell you. The only way you're going to burn fat is to stay out of protection mode. The only way you're going to stay out of protection mode is to keep your drip going. You need to eat enough clean carbs. Don't let your drip stop. People are always asking me, what do we do to eliminate those powerful cravings for sugary junk carbs? To answer that, let's go right back to the drip while it's fresh in your mind. When your storage of clean complex carbs are gone and your drip stops, that's when your blood sugar levels drop. That's when you get those ravenous hunger pains and feel an immediate need to supply your body with sugary junk. Unlike clean carbs, satisfying the craving with sugary junk does not create a continuous drip of energy for your body. It provides an immediate, unhealthy spike to your blood sugar levels, kind of like throwing a cup of gasoline on a fire. Because that's only temporary, your blood sugar levels plummet again and you get another craving. That's why junk carbs are not a healthy or efficient source of energy. The solution? Eat enough clean carbs. That'll leave you content and satisfied, which means you'll be less apt to reach for junk. The continuous drip of glucose that the clean carbs create will regulate your blood sugar levels and reduce the cravings. You'll have great energy levels and you'll be out of protection mode and in fat burning mode. Don't let your drip stop. The low-carb fad has misled the public into thinking that all carbs are bad and that even natural, healthy sources of clean carbs like potatoes, pasta, whole grain bread, and rice should be avoided. The reason they try to convince us of such nonsense is that they know the quickest and easiest way to show us a loss of weight on the scale is to steal our valuable muscle. I can't tell you how many people have come to me over the years with good intentions making one or both of the following 2 mistakes. First, they say, I don't get it. I'm eating only protein and vegetables, but I'm not getting any leaner. Why am I not losing fat? Here's why. Although vegetables are nutrient dense and fiber dense, they're not energy dense. They're great for you, but they don't replace the energy you get from clean, complex carbs. That brings us right back to violating body law number 2. Not enough energy, your body goes into protection mode and refuses to burn fat. Don't let your drip stop. And here's the second one I get all the time. With their good intentions, they tell me, I know it's not healthy, I know it's not reasonable, but I'm going to do a deprivational diet for a jump start and a quick fix. So my question to you, is a quick fix a fix at all if the weight you lose comes from muscle? Remember body law number 1. A loss of muscle will slow your metabolism, and that'll cause you to gain even more fat. My point is that your body is not interested in your intentions. It's interested in getting enough of the right foods at the right times in the right amounts so you can keep your drip going. Next up, when, what, and how much to eat. I showed you how your body stores clean carbs, but I didn't tell you how much it could store. In other words, how big is your tank? How many hours can you go on a full fuel supply? When you're sitting on the couch doing nothing, you can expect to get about 8 hours out of a full tank of clean carbs. At the other end of the spectrum, you'll get about 90 minutes or less out of a full tank when you're exercising. But what you need to realize is that under normal, average daily conditions, you'll only get around 4 hours out of one full tank of fuel. We have a dilemma. By eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, most people go 6 hours or more between meals. You simply can't expect to go 6 hours on a 4-hour fuel supply without your drip stopping. Are you famished sometimes in the late morning? Do you get tired or have less focus in the late afternoon? Do you ever get cravings for sugary junk during your day? Because those are the things you can expect when you run out of fuel because you didn't eat every 4 hours. People come to me all the time, frustrated, saying, I don't get it. I eat 3 perfectly well-balanced meals a day and get plenty of exercise, yet I'm still not losing fat. My response to that is crucial, and you need to burn it into your memory. Eating healthy has absolutely nothing to do with eating enough. In other words, eating healthy has nothing to do with keeping your drip going. Back to the car analogy for a second. You can put the highest quality, highest octane fuel you can find in your car, but it's still not going to matter unless you put enough of it in to get you where you're going. Even when you're making an effort to eat the right things, because your body is limited in how much it can store, if you're not eating often enough, you're still going to run out of fuel and suffer the fat gain consequences of body law number 1. The simple solution, eat 4 times a day instead of 3. Instead of a traditional breakfast, lunch, and dinner format that leaves you with 6 hours between meals, you need to eat 2 lunches rather than 1. Your first lunch will be in the late morning, and your second lunch will be in the early afternoon. For example, breakfast at 7, lunch at 11, lunch at 3, and dinner at 7. Refer to page 1 in your guidebook and you'll see that by eating roughly every 4 hours, you can get from one meal to the next without running out of energy and suffering the consequences. 2 lunches instead of 1 will keep your drip going and will keep you out of protection mode so that you can burn fat. So now that we know when to eat, what to eat becomes the next question. Each of your 4 meals must contain a clean complex carb for energy, a fruit or vegetable for nutrients and fiber, and a protein to help rebuild cells and tissue. Referring to page 2 in your guidebook, you'll see that I want you to get your clean carbs from natural and whole grain sources like rice, pasta, potatoes, cereals, and breads. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, they're all good, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're being unreasonable. Get your proteins from lean meats, skinless poultry, fish, egg whites, low-fat dairy products, and soy products. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. 4 times a day, ask yourself, where's my clean carb, where's my fruit or veggie, and where's my protein? Now that you know when to eat and what to eat, it's time to talk portion sizes with one simple rule. Fist, fist, palm. Turn to page 3 in your guidebook, and before you even ask, the answer is yes. I'm talking about your fist, not Andre the Giant's fist. Each of your 4 meals must contain a fist-sized serving of clean carb, a fist-sized serving of fruit or veggie, and a palm-sized serving of protein if the source is meat, poultry, or fish. If your protein source for that meal is not meat, poultry, or fish, then it needs to be the equivalent in grams. That's about 20 grams of protein per meal for women and about 30 for men. That's it. Now you know that I was serious in the beginning when I said I was going to make it simple. 4 times a day, a fist-sized serving of clean carb, a fist-sized serving of fruit or veggie, and a palm-sized serving of protein. To make what, when, and how much to eat even more clear, I've provided you with 12 sample meals, or in other words, 3 days worth of food. The 12 meals you see here on the screen are also on page 4 in the guidebook. Day 1 is in the top row, day 2 the middle row, and day 3 is the bottom row. One of the points I want to make is that your particular meal choices are endless because you're simply following a template that you have the ability to customize. Keep in mind that these 12 meals are not a specific recommendation of what I want you to eat. They're just here to give you a visual. Starting with day 1 at the top left of your screen, breakfast is egg whites, wheat toast, and an apple. Lunch 1 is a tuna sandwich. Lunch 2, a 6-inch Subway sub, and dinner is steak, potato, and salad. Day 2 breakfast is cottage cheese, a waffle, and a half a banana. Lunch 1 is a McDonald's grilled chicken sandwich, and lunch 2 is a protein shake, a half a potato, and a half a banana. Dinner is grilled fish, rice, and broccoli. What I find in my experience is that 99% of the time people already have dinner pegged. Almost everyone already has a meat, a carb, and a vegetable. It's just what we're used to. We need to carry that mentality throughout the rest of our day and do it 3 more times. On day 3, breakfast is a protein shake, oatmeal, and strawberries. Lunch 1 is an omelet, half a bagel, and some grapes. Lunch 2 is a perfect example of a balanced meal you can put together in seconds and bring with you when you know you're going to be on the run. Cheese sticks, wheat crackers, and cut veggies. And we finish day 3 with chicken, pasta, and carrots for dinner. Now you put 3 days like this together and life is good. You have plenty of energy, your drip is continuous, and you're not at risk of burning muscle. Here's where the problems start. I call it the empty plate theory. Now there's consequences. Your drip stops, your body drops into protection mode and burns muscle. Your metabolism slows and you gain fat. And that's with only 1 empty plate. What if your 3 days looked like this? Now when you refer to page 4 in your guidebook, you'll get a quick glimpse of how to plug those 3 days into the practical plan. I'm going to fully explain the practical plan in just a few minutes, but first we need to get clear on the whatabouts. I already know what you're thinking. You're thinking, yeah, that's simple, but what about calories? What about supplements? What about alcohol? What about fats, protein, water, traveling? What about eating late at night? What about cheating? And what about eating before and after exercising? Well, those are just a few of the more popular whatabouts that everyone has. And after I briefly address each one, you'll see how that'll lead us right back to keeping it simple with the practical plan. What about calories? As I've shown you throughout this message, your body's energy intake needs to keep up with the demands of your activity levels, or else there's going to be consequences. In other words, there needs to be an energy balance. However, using calories as a means to measure energy is a very confusing and misleading practice. Here's why. The weight loss industry, tells us that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. They tell us that if you take in more calories than you burn, you'll gain weight, and that if you burn more calories than you take in, you'll lose weight. Well, first of all, we already learned that weight is an ambiguous word, and that we need to know what kind of weight we've gained or lost before we even decide if it's good or bad. Secondly, calories aren't even in food. They're a measure of heat produced by food when the food is burned in a little testing oven called a calorimeter. The confusion starts when the scientists inaccurately assume that the human body and the little testing oven that the food is burned in behave and react exactly the same. This assumption can be disproven by using fiber as an example. I've already mentioned that fiber is indigestible by the human body. Although it provides great health benefits, it provides the human body with no energy. On the other hand, when fiber is burned and measured in a calorimeter, it does produce energy. To better understand that example, think of firewood. When you throw wood on a campfire, you absolutely know that it produces heat energy or calories. But you also know that that wood is not going to provide your body with energy if you decide to eat it instead. As I explained earlier, the human body uses each of the nutrients for different purposes. Carbs for energy, fat for protection, and protein for repair. However, in a calorimeter, carbs, fats, and protein are all treated the same. They're just burned and measured with absolutely no concern for what their purpose may be in the human body. The moral of the story is that the human body and this little testing oven called a calorimeter do not behave the same, and to compare one to the other is misleading. My point is that the right balance and right types of food you're taking in is much more important than how much heat a certain food emits when it's burned. Using calories to measure food is like using the scale to measure weight loss. You need to be more specific. You need to know what type of weight you lose, and you need to be aware of what types of calories you consume. That's why it's far more efficient to rely on the fist palm, clean carb fruit or vegetable and protein 4 times a day rule. Not only is it more specific, it's simpler. And I've got to tell you, I've personally never met anyone who likes to count calories anyway. I'd like to take this one step farther by showing you how this idea of trying to figure out exactly how many calories you need per day is also misleading. For example, let's say you look up on one of those charts or tables and it tells you that you need 1,700 calories per day. Now let's go back and compare that line of thinking to your car. You know that your drive to work and back each day is exactly 40 miles and that your car gets 20 miles per gallon. Every morning, do you go out and put in exactly 2 gallons because that's all you need? No way. What if you had to run an errand or make a detour? You'd run out of gas and be forced to suffer the consequences. The truth is, you don't obsess about exactly how much gas you need that day, and you don't measure it out with an eyedropper because you're fully aware that your car has a fuel storage system called a gas tank, and that it's much wiser to maintain a surplus. Your body works exactly the same way. There are lots of variables every day, and it's impossible to predict how much energy you'll need. If you try to guess exactly how much fuel it needs that day and you guess low and run out, then we're right back to body law number 2, burning muscle tissue, slowing your metabolism, and gaining fat. Once again, the bottom line is that the weight loss industry has convinced you that it's okay to take in fewer calories than you need, and that when you do, you'll lose weight. They're right. You will lose weight, muscle weight, and you will suffer the fat gain consequences. You should find it very comforting that your body, just like your car, has a fuel storage system for maintaining extra energy, which allows you to play it safe by always being prepared. To sum it up, in no way, shape, or form am I green lighting you to take in as many calories and whatever types of calories you want. What I am saying is don't obsess over calories as a means to measure energy, and that when you follow the conventional wisdom of taking in less energy than your body needs, you'll be left with the conventional outcome of weight loss instead of the desired outcome, fat loss. What about supplements? I like to break this what about down into 2 categories, magic pills and bars. Magic pills try to hook you with the following outrageous claims: burn fat faster, block fat storage, speed your metabolism, shape your thighs, firm your butt, define your abs, and build muscle without exercise. All from taking the magical new pill called Fat Away. All I have to say about that is, they lie. Here's what you really need to know. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, regulates foods and drugs. Supplements slide right through, totally unregulated by anyone. What does that mean? That means, number 1, the listed ingredients have not been safety tested. And number 2, the actual contents have not been checked to see if they even match the listed ingredients. In other words, you don't know what you're getting, and even if you did, you don't know if it's safe. The bottom line, stay away from the magic pills. They're unregulated, the risks are too high, and the outrageous marketing claims are just lies anyway. Sticking with the theme of they lie, let's move on to the bars. ConsumerLabs.com recently put to the test 12 protein bars and 8 meal replacement bars to determine if the actual ingredients match the labeling claims. Only 2 out of 20 bars passed. The other 18 lied, mostly about how much sugar they contained. Again, they lie because they can. Supplements are not regulated, and as a result, the manufacturers are not held accountable by anyone. Back to the bars. Two things to consider. Number one, remember that a protein bar only satisfies the protein requirement and does not replace a meal. And number two, beware of the no sugar and low sugar bars because they contain sugar alcohols, which have been proven to wreak havoc on your digestive tract. You're always going to be better off getting your nutrients from real food. But I understand that's not always an option, and convenience is a major issue. With that in mind, on the products page of the website, I am going to provide you with some natural meal replacement options that will satisfy the fist palm requirement. What about alcohol? We need to take a quick look at it from a health standpoint and from a fat burning perspective. There are a lot of studies that show health benefits from moderate drinking, and there are just as many studies that indicate health consequences from moderate drinking. So from a health standpoint, I'm leaving that one up to you. But from a fat burning standpoint, understand that alcohol is a double whammy. First, it has no nutritional value, and secondly, it has a slowing effect on the metabolism. That brings me to my very reasonable yes answer. Can you drink moderately and still lose body fat? Yes, you can. Can you lose fat more efficiently without alcohol? Yes, you can. What about fats? On this system, it's okay and fully expected that you'll stir fry your veggies in a little oil, have some dressing on your salad, and put a little butter on your toast. That's reasonable. But I'm also not green lighting you to eat as much and whatever kinds of fat you want. Because your body has no requirement for saturated fats, cholesterol, or trans fats, you need to keep these heart disease catalysts in check. And as a side note, trans fats have been getting a lot of publicity lately. They're the byproduct of an unnatural man-made process called hydrogenation, an example of which is when liquid corn oil is turned into solid margarine. I encourage you to make reasonable choices when you can. Select natural, unsaturated fats with little or no cholesterol, and select foods that contain little or no hydrogenated oils or trans fats. What about protein? I want you to balance your protein sources daily in order to keep saturated fats and cholesterol in check. In other words, because I have meat listed on your protein to-do list, it doesn't mean you should have a hamburger 4 times a day. That's not reasonable. Be creative, mix it up, and find other things you like. I put egg whites, low-fat dairy, and soy products on that list for a reason. For help in balancing your protein, refer back to the sample meals. And as a side note, I'm often asked, I'm a vegetarian. How does that affect me on this system? My answer is it doesn't affect you at all. You still need to eat wise and exercise, and you still need to give your body an adequate supply of protein to repair cells and tissue. Instead of a palm-sized serving of meat, you'll need the equivalent each meal in grams. That's about 20 for women and about 30 grams per meal for men. It may take a little extra effort and planning sometimes, but you can certainly meet your protein requirements by balancing a combination of non-meat protein sources. What about water? This is the only thing I don't want you to do in moderation. Your body regulates its own fluid levels, so go for it. Keep drinking, even when you're not thirsty. Make sure you get at least 75 ounces per day. What about traveling? Your body doesn't operate by a different set of principles just because you're on the road, and the consequences of missing a meal remain the same. Traveling is no excuse to abandon the practical plan because healthy food is available everywhere, even in fast food restaurants. Yes, it may be more difficult, and being out of your routine, you may not have as many good options. In fact, you may have to choose the lesser of two evils at times. Let's say you're away for 5 days. That's 20 meals. You can rationalize on your way out the door, blow off the whole idea of eating wise and go 0 for 20, or you can come home having faced some real challenges and still have found a way to go 12 for 20. Going 12 for 20 instead of 0 for 20 is what the mindset of the practical plan and the moderation method is all about. What about eating late at night? When we're active, we need to eat every 4 hours, period. If you don't get home in the evening until 8 o'clock and your last meal was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to be running pretty close to empty. Now you have a choice. You can listen to that ancient wives' tale that says you should never eat dinner late at night, in which case your tank will run dry, your drip will stop, you'll go into protection mode and burn muscle, or you can sit down to a healthy, balanced, clean carb, fruit or vegetable protein, fill your tank back up, and give your body what it needs to function properly. In my opinion, it's what people typically eat late at night that creates problems. How many people do you know that pass on the ice cream and have a salad at 10 o'clock at night? The bottom line, you may be concerned with the clock, but that doesn't change the fact that your body is still concerned with getting enough energy. What about cheating? The truth is, there's no way to be reasonable and perfect at the same time. My point is that everyone cheats. And as you'll see shortly with the practical plan, you're not penalized for indulging, you're penalized for not eating enough of the right things. For example, if you have a piece of birthday cake for dessert after having a complete meal, clean carb, fruit or vegetable, and protein, no problem, no deduction. That's expected and that's reasonable. But if you cut out your clean carb for that meal with the thinking that you're going to make room for dessert, then you didn't have a complete meal and you will receive a deduction. The emphasis needs to be on the rule or the foundation and not the exception or the cheat. You'll soon see that when you focus on your foundation, you'll be less inclined to cheat because you'll always be full, content, and satisfied. And when you do indulge, enjoy it, knowing that by making wise choices most of the time, it won't affect the overall big picture. And as a side note, it's an extremely common practice, but actually the worst thing you can do. The day after a big cheat, you try to make up for it by starving yourself. That just makes matters worse because now you drop into protection mode and burn muscle. Body law number 2 doesn't really care if you're feeling guilty about your cheat or not. What about eating before and after exercise? In the interest of keeping it simple, think of it this way. The body is always in need of protein for repair, the body is always in need of carbs for energy, and the body is always in need of fruits and vegetables for nutrients and fiber. So trying to outthink the body by giving it just one or the other of the nutrients before or after exercise is totally unnecessary. By eating a balanced meal every 4 hours, you're already doing what you need to do before and after exercise. Your body will need at least 45 minutes to get those clean carbs you eat into the tank. So scarfing down some quick carbs right before you exercise won't help you anyway. After exercise, you can eat as soon as you want because that's obviously when your body is most depleted and in the most need of nutrients. Exercising before you eat in the morning is also okay because an empty stomach does not mean an empty tank. If you do exercise before you eat in the morning, you'll obviously need to eat shortly after. However, if you didn't eat a good dinner and went to bed depleted and then tried to exercise in the morning without eating, you're definitely going to run out of gas and suffer the consequences of body law number 2. The bottom line, stick with the plan. Fist, palm, clean carb, fruit or vegetable and protein 4 times a day and everything else will fall into place. Wrapping up the whatabouts, I want you to understand that everyone has them. How could you not have them? Everyone has their own unique set of circumstances, from health issues to work schedules to individual likes and dislikes of certain foods. And then you have the sea of contradictory health and fitness information out there. It's easy to become overwhelmed, and it's easy to become confused about the best plan of attack. I need to point out that I've taken all that into consideration. I've labored over the fact that there's hundreds of things that people could know about eating wise, but what's the fewest amount of things they really need to know to create success and be consistent? Knowing that the list of whatabouts is infinite, but also knowing that every human body, regardless of age or gender, has the same basic and fundamental needs of nourishment, I ask myself, if I could teach you only a few things, and if you could apply just a few things that would make the biggest impact, what would those few things be? Fist, palm, clean carb, fruit or vegetable and protein 4 times a day. This way of keeping it simple needs to always supersede your individual whatabouts. It's perfectly fine to have your whatabouts. As long as they're always in addition to this foundation, you're on the right track. And as far as handling the whatabouts, the plan of attack is always the same. Be reasonable, keep it simple, consider the body laws, stick with the practical plan, and then make your best choice. It's time to put it all together. Make no mistake, the entire moderation method and this Eat Wise Not Less DVD culminate with the practical plan. The practical plan is your opportunity to take all the information we discussed and not just apply it, but continue to apply it. Here's how it works. 4 meals per day, 7 days per week, there's 28 boxes. In each box, there's a CC for clean carb, and an F or V for fruit or vegetable, and a P for protein. Regardless of how great or poorly you did last week, you start each Monday morning with a clean slate and a fresh score of 100. Again, you're not expected to score 100. I don't want you to be perfect, I want you to be consistent. From our earlier conversation, you'll remember that you're not penalized for indulgences, you're penalized for not doing enough of the right things. Be encouraged knowing that great results happen with weekly scores of 80. All you need to do is place an X over any missed or incomplete meal and deduct 4 points for each. In order for a meal to be considered complete, it must contain all 3 components. You also place an X over any missed workout and deduct 10 points for each. I'll explain the exercise portion of the program in detail in the Exercise Wise DVD, but for now, understand that you're expected to complete 2 25-minute weight training sessions and 2 25-minute cardio sessions per week. At the end of the week, total your deductions and subtract from 100 for that week's final score. The bottom line, with the practical plan, you get a fresh start each week, you're allowed to make your own food choices, you're not penalized for indulging, you don't need to be perfect and score 100, it's a great way to stay organized, and when you score 80, you lose fat. There are 2 example sheets in your guidebook. In example number 1 on page 5, you'll see that when you eat only 3 meals every day, miss breakfast once that week, and skip 2 exercise sessions, you'll be left with a 48. On the other hand, in example number 2 on page 6, you'll see no missed workouts and only 4 missed or incomplete meals for a final weekly score of 84. Rest assured, your weekly score will reflect your results and vice versa. From my experience, there are 2 keys to using this tool effectively. Number 1, use it for planning, not just tracking. Don't use the sheet to fill in what you've had. Use the sheet to have what you've already filled in. Plan and write in your meals at least 2 days in advance in pencil in case you need to make adjustments. The second key is visibility. Keep your guidebook open and on the counter, or tape it to the fridge, or keep it on your desk at work. Just make sure you can see it. I also want you to use a big pink highlighter for your X's and put them in as you go so you're not fooling yourself. You want to be able at any time to see how your week is shaping up with just a glance. I'd like to wrap up the practical plan by addressing a few common questions I get. Question 1, how long do I need to follow the practical plan? To answer that question thoroughly, I'd like to share kind of a funny story or example with you that's happened numerous times over the years. Somebody will have come to one of my clinics, received all the information I just shared with you, and left with specific instructions to write everything down on their sheets for their follow-up. Now here's the funny part. When I follow up with them, they tell me, I'm doing everything you said, but your plan doesn't seem to be working so good for me. So I say, what have your scores been? And they say, I don't know. So I said, let me see your sheets. And they say, well, I haven't really filled them out, but I've been eating really healthy. And as I go on with my questions, I find out that they've been eating 3 meals instead of 4. 2 of those meals are not having any clean carbs, and they're not doing any weight training. Basically, they haven't followed any part of the plan, yet they still tell me that my plan doesn't work. My response generally goes something like this. You have no scores and no completed sheets, you're not eating enough of the right things, and you haven't done the right types of exercise. It doesn't appear to me that you've been following my plan at all. It looks like you've been following your own plan. That's what got you in trouble in the first place, and that's what's going to keep you there. On my plan, those actions would have earned a score of 12. You're not supposed to get results with a 12. That's the whole idea. But not to worry, that scenario is the exception. And my point is that the sheet and the score is the only way to know if you are following the plan. The good news is that every single person I've ever counseled who has used the sheets and followed the plan consistently has had phenomenal results. It's never not worked, period. When you follow the plan and score 80, it works every time. And when you don't follow the plan and you don't score 80, it doesn't work every time. With all that having been said, the answer to the how long do you need to follow the plan question is that you're always going to need to stick with the fist palm, clean carb, fruit or vegetable, and protein 4 times per day format. But when it comes to writing everything down, you'll only need to use the sheets until you've established a pattern and created a habit of scoring 80. Usually after 4 to 6 weeks of scoring 80, you get it and you feel it, and it just becomes part of your daily routine. At that point, if you choose not to write things down anymore, that's okay, as long as you have a handle on things. I do work with a lot of people, however, who fully understand the plan and who do have a handle on things, but they choose to continue to use the sheets indefinitely as a means of discipline and accountability. The second most common question I get at this point is, knowing that on diets, weight loss from muscle can happen quickly, and knowing that this is not a diet, how long will it take to start losing body fat on the Practical Plan? Well, that depends on how many times you've forced your body into protection mode over the years. If that hasn't happened often, then as soon as you start scoring 80 on the Practical Plan, your body will begin to respond immediately by burning fat. Now, this is where I draw the line in the sand. On one side of the line, you have all the other fitness and nutritional instructional products out there that pump out empty promises and tell people what they want to hear. But on my side of the line, I'm going to answer the how long will it take question by telling you what you need to hear. How many times over the years have you skipped breakfast? How many times over the years did you intentionally eat less? How many times have you cut back on your carbs? How many times have you been too busy to eat? Because if you have done any of those things continually, in other words, if you've repeatedly put your body in protection mode over the years, then the truth is your body doesn't fully trust you, and consequently, it may not begin to part with its protective device immediately. Let's say a person missed a meal every day for 5 years. It's really not that uncommon. A lot of people skip breakfast. It wouldn't be reasonable to think that after 5 straight years of trying to survive in protection mode, that after only 1 week of eating wise, the body would trust you enough to immediately relinquish the fat that it's worked so hard to accumulate and maintain. The great news is that despite those 5 years, you're not doomed, not even close. All it takes is consistent behavior to regain your body's trust and to get out of protection mode and back into fat burning mode. Personally, as long as I've been doing this, I continue to be amazed by how forgiving and resilient the human body is. It doesn't want to be in protection mode any more than you do. And what I can tell you with 100% certainty is that regardless, and I mean no matter how many times you put yourself in protection mode, regardless of what you've done up to this point, when you start today and consistently give your body what it needs, it will do its job. It will respond, and it absolutely will burn fat. Be encouraged knowing that your body will always hold up its end of the deal, and focus on your job of consistently scoring 80. I truly hope this information helps you. Now it's time to wrap it up by distinguishing the difference between what you need to know and what you need to do. Right now, here's what you need to do. Grab your guidebook and fill out 1 week's worth of meals. Then make a weight training plan. Either join a gym or go to the products page of the website and order the Show Me Don't Tell Me DVD and the adjustable dumbbells and bench. Then make your cardio plan. Pick your activities and days and enter them in the exercise box on the Practical Plan. And there's one more thing you need to do. Don't just sit idly by while a family member or friend continues to get sucked in by the weight loss industry's gimmicks. Straighten them out. Teach them the difference between weight loss and fat loss. Or make sure they go to eatwiseandexercise.com and watch the moderation method. Thanks for the opportunity, and remember, looking good and feeling great. That's just what happens when you eat wise and exercise. And oh yeah, one last thing. Don't let your drip stop.